All right.
Okay,
No
so
problem.
it's really a big pleasure to have you in our conversation, in our meeting, and it will be very, for me, very inspiring to listen to you and to your story and how you started with the bows and specifically with the West Coast style bows. So it's yours. Yeah.
It's mine. Oh,
It's
no.
yours, yeah.
This may be a mistake. Well, I started making or playing with archery, primitive archery, back in 1980, 81. And I don't know. I mean, there was a book that came out called American Indian Archery by Reginald Laubin. In there, what really kind of got me started was the section on Ishii, where he was about shooting, how to shoot Indian style bows. And he had a short little section on Ishii and how he shot the bow. Of course, it's an oddball way of doing it. And that just kind of fascinated me. So in order to do it, I had to make my own bow. There were no videos, there were not very many books or anything like that. So I was totally self-taught. I broke bows for 2 years before I was ever successful. I broke 6 bows in 2 months one time. But eventually I figured it out. I would make kid bows, children's bows, and I gave them to the neighborhood kids, and we would shoot them together. And then once I became successful with the kid bow, I just upped the parameter to an adult size. And that's basically how I did it. The Ishii thing, I was interested in it, and I just started playing with trying to figure out how to shoot that way. I could not, it didn't make sense to shoot that way. It was too odd. So I eventually was able to produce a bow that was similar to an Ishii bow, and then just started playing with it. And it was an exercise in frustration, because it's so odd. You know, I would shoot that way. I would shoot normally and then spend 5-10 minutes playing with Ishii shooting, and then get frustrated and say, forget it. And then I'd come back to it again. And over 30 some years now, almost 40 years. Well, yeah, now it is 40 years. Wow. I just figured it out. Eventually I figured it out. And then of course, you know, I know you've seen the YouTube video that I did for Jeff Martin and Primitive Lifeways, which is kind of the culmination of everything. I have to admit that my Ishii shooting is suffering now because I have arthritis in this thumb, which is the thumb. So I have a really hard time doing it anymore. It just hurts the thumb too much. So do you have a question about?
Yeah, of course. I have lots of questions because till now we were just texting on Facebook, and now I have the privilege to talk to you. It's not face to face, but it's much better. As close as it can, get. Yeah. So, what was frustrating for you? The learning how to shoot Ishii style, or the process of making the bow? Because the making of the bow is also very complicated in comparison to regular long bows or self bows.
Yeah, I mean, in the video, I said the bow that I learned with was a Modoc style bow. And I showed a picture of it in the video. The Hoopa style I played with later on. It just, I mean, like I said, I was an experimenter. I was interested in form. That's why I went down the asymmetrical bow road too, because it's an oddball thing. I always grab understand it, and I want to try to figure it out. Well, you've seen this bow I posted it on the Bow Makers This is the little Hoopa bow. And I made 2 bows with
Mark, I think that we have a problem with the internet connection, reception.
He's gone. I'm gone.
I think that we had a problem with the internet reception, and now we got back. So,
all right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
And now so we continue from now.
Okay, you've got me. I can see that there's 2 other guys online, but I cannot see their faces.
I told them that if they can open the cameras, it will be good, but they're not responding, so I don't know if they are.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Well, these 2 bows, like I showed you, were an experiment in limb mass placement. With the limb, very mid limb. With the Modoc bow, the widest part of the limb is down here in the handle. The Hoopa bow for me is kind of an enigma. This bow actually works better as a working parameter. In my mind, to put the mass, the working mass, this is where most of the bend is taking place, is right in here. And to place it close to the hand where you would hold the bow, and to have this outer mass, outer limb, to have as little mass as possible makes this limb faster. Whereas this bow places the mass of the limb out in the middle of the bow. So the bend is completely different. And this is, I think I gave you the illustration. There's an aerodynamic thing. It may not affect the bow a whole lot, but I know with you, I made a comment about putting your hand when you're riding with the car and you put your hand outside the window and you've got it flat like this and the wind is pushing against the hand. It's the same thing as here. You put the hand like this and all of a sudden the wind resistance is a whole lot less. And that's what I kind of compare these two. This bow here is like having the hand like this. This bow here is like having the hand like this outside the window of the car. So when you shoot these 2 little bows, they're exactly the same. They pull 25 pounds at 10 inches of draw. They're 20 inches long. This bow is actually, you can tell it's slightly faster than this bow.
Yeah. And they are concealed carry, so it's like a mini Uzi.
Yes. I like that analogy.
yeah, it's amazing. You put it outside of the jacket, you know.
yeah. I mean, everybody loves these bows. I mean, this bow, the shape is beautiful. I mean, when it has that beautiful hourglass shape, but in my opinion, and I'm kind of a downer on them, is that I don't think they're that great of a design. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't tell somebody don't make one. You know, you really ought to make one. I mean, trying to get, this is the working part of the limb, and you want this to bend. And it's difficult as the leverage moves out the limb. You get thinner. It becomes a very more difficult to tiller these bows. And
so
go ahead.
So I have several questions about it, because I remember that you commented about 2 of my bows. One is the the Ahumawi style with the Hoopa design.
Yes.
With the Hoopa painting the design.
Yeah.
That you told me that the tiller is supposed to be more the bending area in the center of the limbs needs to be a higher percentage.
Yeah, it almost should be more elliptical.
Yeah,
understand? More elliptical. Whereas this bow, the Modoc design produces a more rounded arc of a circle type tiller. Now, when you look at old pictures of Hoopa Yurok guys shooting the bows, they bend in the handle a lot. The tiller on some of those old bows is terrible. It's like, we look at these guys as you know, they're the masters of these things. And I mean, I saw one picture where all the bend was right in here in the bow. And it didn't bend the reason at all.
So what is the reason for the design? Why it's only a design a feature, like an artistic feature, and not something that has like a physics inside the design? That
I don't even answer that question.
Yeah,
it's you know, because you have Hoopa Yurok, which is, they made the same design and they were very wide in the middle limb. I mean, I don't know how to convert it to centimeters. They could be 2.5 to 3 inches wide.
Yeah, it's between 6 centimeters to almost 8 centimeters wide.
Yeah, I mean, I think they measured it as 3 fingers wide, yeah, maybe
3 to 4.
Bow, and a war bow would be 4 fingers wide, might be the way of measuring it. Now you have another group of people that are nearby called the Pit River bow, or the Akumawi. It's the same basic design, but rather than 2.5 inches, 3 inches wide, they're only 2 inches wide. So they're a little narrower, and the shape is more elongated. They're a little bit longer, so they're not quite as narrow. They're not quite as wide in here. It's the same basic hourglass type shape. To me, it's moving towards making more sense. So yeah, for me, you know, because of the idea of leverage, the longer the lever, the more force is exerted down close to the handle. That's why this makes more sense to me. It puts all the working part of the limb close to the hand where the leverage is the best.
Yeah, and when you saw the other bow that I posted with the snake skin, you know, the one that looks like a Modoc?
Modoc bow, yeah.
Modoc style, yeah. So, so you told me that the tiller there looks much better, and I think it's a big one of the reason for this is because of the design, because it has more pyramid design. It's much easier to tiller this type of bow, I think.
Yeah, basically it is a pyramid bow. I mean, it's an American style pyramid bow, or rather the Modoc is the precursor to the American style pyramid bow.
And the Pit River design is more similar to the one Ishii used.
Yes, yes. Ishii's bows, as a general rule, were 1 3/4 inches wide. The Pit River is about 2 inches wide. Hoopa is 2.5 to 3. You can translate that into centimeters.
Yeah, and do you have any knowledge or maybe ideas why they designed this type of bow in the environment that they were living, you know, in the specific environment with the specific plants and animals that were living there, and why they designed a specific and unique shooting style? Because I will tell you why I'm asking. Because when I'm on my first lectures, I was talking about the how different clans of people or different tribes that were living in different parts in the world, you know, rainforest, the Arctic, plains,
Right.
and so on, how the bows and the entire unit, yeah, the bow and the arrow, were designed specifically for the environment and
Yes. Yes.
for the type of use.
Yes.
And I'm trying to, in my personal learning process,
Yeah.
curve, I'm trying to figure out why different people that were living in different parts in the world, why they designed the bow and the arrows the way they did it.
Yeah. See, your approach is exactly like mine. You and I are very similar when it comes to why is something the way it is. I have a dictum that I kind of apply to everything is purpose dictates design. Design reveals purpose, and design is influenced by the materials available in that particular locale. Why the Hoopa would have such a wide limb design versus the Pit River just a little narrower, and then you get another spot that used the same style of shooting, the Wintu, their bow is basically straight. I mean, it's wide in the center and there is no swell in it. It's basically a straight bow. But they all used Ishii style shooting. They didn't always use the thumb lock, but they always would, they would hold the bow in the center like Ishii. They would put the arrow through the center. Some of them used the thumb lock like Ishii did, and some of them actually used aerial. Moroz is using that Persian style release. I've seen pictures of guys using that Persian style release, shooting Ishii style, just like aerial.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and some of them are shooting a pinch style, just a little, like a child's pinch release. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these bows are they're not that heavy, but I mean, you're asking the $64 question is why one tribe in one valley made it this way, and 5 miles away they made it different. That's you're asking the question I was trying to ask.
Yeah, actually, I'm quite the fact that Ariel is not in this conversation is I'm a little upset because it would be much funnier, Oh, he's a funny person.
I can tell he's a funny guy. Yes.
Yeah, totally. But I will show him the recording. So
you tell him someday I'm gonna get a haircut from that guy.
yeah, you must come to Israel. You must come. I think
I would love
it will do us so good, to have a knowledgeable person. I know that you are. You say that you are not an expert, and it's okay. Yeah, I agree. It's okay to be what is the word? Humble. It's okay to be humble, but Ariel and I, we immediately understood that one of the best things that we can do is try to invite people that have more experience than we have to Israel, and in this way we can get more. What is the word?
Just spread the knowledge, I guess.
Yeah, maybe spread the knowledge and be more get more experience. Yeah, so it will be an honor to.
Right.
Accommodate you and
I know I told you I was there in 1976 for about a week on a tour after I graduated high school. I went on an ancient art tour with my high school art teacher, And we were in Italy, obviously, with Rome and all that kind of stuff. And we were in Greece, did the Greek island tour to Santorini and Patmos, all those, the Mykonos and all those places. And we were in Egypt for a short time. And then we ultimately we were in Israel for a good week. And we flew into Jordan, went over the Allenby Bridge, which was a really interesting experience, getting searched and everything looked at. Yeah. And then we spent a week in Israel doing all the stuff in Israel. And I know it's totally different than it was when I was there. Oh, that's been a long time ago now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I'll try to get back to my question.
Yeah.
When I'm explaining about the bows that I've made that I shoot in the Ishii style,
yeah,
or I try to shoot as accurate as I can because I need to practice it much more because it's an art in itself. But from what I've heard and I've read, I understood that the reason that they designed short bows with wide limbs and Sinubacked it and made them much more powerful. And above, adding to this, they developed the vertical, the horizontal shooting style.
Yeah,
is because is maybe because they were using the bow shooting from the inside of a bush.
Yes.
And maybe because of this reason they needed shorter bows but powerful. Yeah. And the horizontal shooting style is much easier to use inside a bush when you are inside it than
you know what? That's the conclusion that I came to, and I know I said that in the video, the Ishii shooting video. And as I understand, in Pope's book, Saxton Pope, who wrote the book on Ishii and released it in 1918, that was the style. He said that they would hide in blinds, and they would build rock walls, like a little hut type of a thing, and they would be in there. And the animals were actually driven to the shooters. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's when you shoot from a crouched position, it works really well. You get much beyond about 15 meters, and it gets really sketchy with the accuracy. I was able to hit a paper plate pretty consistently from that distance. But when you start backing up to 20, 30, 40 meters or something like that, the accuracy gets really bad. In the end, actually, Ishii was trying to learn how to shoot like Saxton Pope because he realized that his method of shooting was not as accurate as as Saxton Pope's English style of shooting, which is kind of says something about the style of shooting. It works great when you're 10, 15 feet away. That animal goes by, it's very quick and it's very instinctual. I agree with you. I think it's an ambush style of shooting.
Yeah, I agree because people, I have a friend with archery guide, he guides like an archery trainer.
Yeah.
Coach, not trainer,
yeah.
Coach.
Yeah.
So when he saw this method, he didn't understand what is this type of shooting and how can a person be accurate. But the fact is that there are many different types of shooting styles and techniques.
Well, it that little dictum that I told you about, purpose dictates design. That shooting style is a design, and there's a purpose behind it. And that was my reason for exploring it, was trying to figure out, why would you do it this way?
Yeah.
To shoot a normal style, with the arrow on this side, the bow turned down, is so much more accurate than this style of shooting.
Yeah.
But it's also a really cool style. I mean, when that bow flips over, when you do it correctly and the bow flips over and it removes all the excess energy out of the bow, it's a very quiet way of shooting.
And it also leaves the arrow flight much cleaner without the paradox.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the handles are much wider than regular bows.
Yes. Yeah, when you shoot these bows, normal Western style, they don't work.
If you very hard to for the arrow to paradox.
Yes.
The handle.
Yeah. But when they flip, I mean, it's the first time that happened to me, and the arrow flew, because when I first started, you know, I was holding the bow tightly, and the bow was just, and the arrow would go like this. I mean, it would just porpoise. And the first time I didn't hold it quite so much, and the bow flipped over and the arrow went straight, I go, oh, wow, that works really well. And I think of it in the, I don't know if you're versed in Eastern style archery with the katra, you know, where they're flipping the bow or they're pointing the bow.
like after, when they finish the release, the bow flips to the side.
Yeah, it's a thumb release thing. All the thumb release guys, I mean, yeah, they'll pull it back with the thumb, and they'll either katra forward or they'll katra down, or like the Japanese, the bow literally flips around in their hand because they apply a torque when they hold the bow. So when they release it, it literally flips the bow around in their hands. And the Ishii style shooting does exactly the same thing. It's like a katra type of a thing. Yeah, it's cool. When it works, it's really cool.
Yeah, I remember that when I saw your last video that you did with Jeff about, you showed in the video how you put the arrows inside your armpit, like Ishii did, and the shooting is not only with you know, with the bow hand also goes forward.
Yes.
So it's much more instinctive than placing the bow hand static and drawing the string.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, this video.
Well, and the thing that's interesting is all the tribes that made a paddle bow like this shot that way. Almost every single one of them. Now there's variation, obviously, but that's it. You know, that might be an answer to the question that we ask is why? Why would they make a wide bow? I mean, one reason is if you're hiding in a blind, you don't need 6 feet of limb like an English longbow. But if you take that longbow and you take that same mass and you squish it down into a short little 3-foot long bow, it has the same mass as a longbow, it's just in a compact form. And in order to get that, you got to go wide with the limbs.
Yeah.
And wide and thin bends a lot easier than narrow and thick. And then obviously they're a high stress bow, so you need the sinew in order to take up the tension. So I mean who knows? Maybe it's the way of shooting that they were employing that influenced the bow design.
Yeah, it could be.
We might have answered or at least suggested an answer to that question as to why the short, wide limb.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I consider the Hoopa bow, the Hoopa Yurok style bow, to be one of the hardest of the American Indian style bows to make. And you've made one. You know what they're like. There can be a real pain.
It's a long process. Yeah, it's a long process.
Jeff's blown up 2 of them now.
Yeah,
just recently.
Yeah, but it's because of the humidity in Arizona, I think, and
yeah, that's another thing. I mean, there was a question on Primitive Archer about bows in locations, and I mean, I have, let's see, I know you've seen this bow here. I posted it.
Yeah.
This is a long, it's a long Ishii style bow, but it's made out of yew. And I don't know if the cracks, let's see if I can, there's a big old crack right here.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see. Yeah, I see it.
But Arizona has so little humidity. We run 5 and 10% humidity here. And yew does not like humidity or doesn't like dry. These two little bows are made out of juniper, our local juniper, and it works great. The locals, I mean, there's a reason why Indians use particular woods for their location, is because that's what worked in their location. Yew for California, we don't have yew in Arizona, but California's got yew up in the mountains, and it's a lot more humidity in the area that they're made. In Arizona, I mean, you have this sinew-backed bow, but it's not as common as the self bow. And I can understand why, because I've had it so dry that the hide glue gets brittle and it won't flex. So I had it was an Osage orange asymmetrical bow that was sinew-backed. And I was shooting it one afternoon and it was like 8% humidity. And the thing the sinew just literally ripped off the back of the bow.
Wow.
The glue just broke. It could not hang on to it because you need some humidity for the hide glue to remain viable.
Yeah.
I mean, a bow here will rise and fall in weight 10 pounds.
Between the seasons?
Yes. When we're having monsoon season, when the humidity is up and we're getting the afternoon thunderstorms and stuff, and the humidity is running in the 50% range, a bow that is, say, 45 pounds at that time, when it dries out, it'll be 55-pound bow. That's one reason why I'm not a fan of the sinew-backed bow in Arizona, because there's no consistency to maintaining weight. Whereas the self bow, it's the same no matter what. It works better. And when you think about the Indians that are down south, the Tohono O'odham and the Papago and some of those other tribes that are down in the desert, they didn't bother with the sinew-backed bow. They're all self bows.
Yeah, we deflex the design, I think.
Yeah, some of them, yes.
Yeah, and maybe there were even places that the wood was so brittle and the environment, the humidity was so dry that maybe they just kept using the atlatl.
Yeah, and it's really effective weapon.
Yeah, the Basketmaker. I think they are a good example.
Yeah. I mean, I have another. Well, I know you've seen this one because I posted. This is that crazy asymmetrical bow that I made.
From the U.
Sinubacked U. Now this bow should not have survived. This was a crappy piece of yew. And I just made it as an experiment and to go with a full-on crazy asymmetrical design on the thing.
It's amazing. It's beautiful.
I got no cracks in this bow. And I can shoot this one with the low humidity. It's just, bows are, it's a subject that never ends when you're talking about world archery. I mean, you've got everything from the paddle bow to the English longbow to the Japanese yumi to the European Merlegabet style bows. I mean, to me, it's a never-ending subject. So I love it. That's what I like about it so much. You can never come to the end of it. But
I think that I agree with you on this subject.
Yeah,
it's the same for me. I'm much.
This is a Hoopa style. I'm working on. I haven't got to the sinew yet.
It's juniper, right?
Playing, huh?
This is juniper.
Yeah, this is actually Rocky Mountain juniper. This one.
Wow.
So it's just now starting to bend.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this process. Yeah. I had a question about the self bows in Arizona. What type of woods were they using?
Say that again.
What type of woods were they using for the self bows?
We have ash. Ash grows right in the stream beds, so there's plenty of ash.
White ash.
Juniper. Yeah. I mean, we have 3 different types of ash in Arizona.
Blue and black.
Yeah, white ash is the one that I've had. That was the first wood I had success with. That's one that if I can find a good ash stave, that's a guaranteed bow. I mean, obviously it's not quite as good as Osage or something like that, and then we obviously have juniper. We got tons of juniper. There's a ranch out north that I used to cowboy on and worked on, and the thing is just a giant juniper forest. So you can go out there and find juniper everywhere out there. There's another wood that is difficult to find that works really well, and it's called New Mexican locust.
Yeah, I heard about it. It's a yellowish type of wood, right?
Yeah, it's like any of the locusts where they, Osage has that yellow color. Locust is somewhat greenish in color, and this is New Mexican. It's not a big tree. If you find a trunk that's about so big around, maybe 2 inches in diameter is about as much as you'll find. But boy, it's really springy wood. It works really well.
Is it similar to honey locust?
Yeah,
because honey locust is also it has a very similar color.
Yeah, it's kind of a yellow greenish color, kind of an odd. I mean, it oxidizes to a brown, kind of like Osage oxidizes to a brown color. It's between. I would call it closer to black locust, but spindly and a whole lot more flexible. And it doesn't seem to suffer from compression fractures like locust does.
Oh, that's amazing, because this is the biggest problem that I experienced with black locust.
Yeah. I mean, it teaches you to tiller correctly. If you screw up in your tiller, it'll tell you right away where you messed up.
Yeah, and now I remember where I first heard about New Mexican locust. I think also in one of Jeff's videos. YouTube
video.
I
was the one that introduced him to that.
Yeah. So
it's a really hard. It's really difficult to find a stave because usually it's really twisted and gnarly. And to find it, usually you don't find them much longer than about 4 feet long.
It sounds very similar to in Israel to the hawthorn.
Yeah,
the hawthorn in Israel, it's very hard to find a straight stave that is not it's not twisted and bent.
Yeah.
And what else? Yeah. And maybe because we are starting, to pass the 1 hour limit, maybe I will ask you maybe maybe 2 more questions, and and afterwards we will close the recording, and
we've kind of moved all over the place.
Yeah.
Not just those, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's very nice. I think that if people will listen to the, we can call it an interview or a conversation, I think that they will learn a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So because my aim in my way in the primitive archery is to spread the word in Israel, so more people will join my love for this skill, and that a community will be built around this subject. And another reason is because I'm teaching this skill. This is what I do. I think I guess that you know it from all the stuff that I post on Facebook. But sure. This is my job. It's funny to say a job, but this is my job right now. Apart from the fact that I'm also a student in the university. So I think that it will be very good for me to ask you what are your thoughts about teaching or guiding other people about this skill. If you have, were you doing it during the years that you are that you have experience in the archery, in making bows, and if you have different approaches that you stick to, like agendas in the way that it's best to teach others how to learn this skill.
Well, I mean, obviously, the only way to really learn it is to do it yourself. I mean, I was the only guy in my area in Prescott, Arizona, that messed with this stuff.
Back in the 70s or 80s?
80s and 90s, and even into the 2000s. I thought I was the only one here. I just had no contact with anybody else. There were no venues or anything like that for it. I just did it on my own. I was exploring it for my own pleasure. And then through Facebook, there used to be a group called Lakota Archery, Lakota Traditional Archery. And I became a part of that group. And through that group is where I met Jeff Martin, who had the primitive lifeways, primitive skills stuff. And I was always interested in that kind of stuff too, because I did the whole mountain man thing back in the 80s. I still do build flintlock rifles periodically. How I got into teaching, and I haven't taught a ton of people. I had a guy come to my studio, and I was engraving a pistol, and I had done some work for him. And of course, I had all my bows are hanging up from the ceiling and on the walls and stuff, and that I've made. And he asked me, he says, "Would you make me a bow?" And I said, "Well, I haven't made a bow in a long time." I said, "But if you buy the stave, I'll make you a bow." So he went on and bought an Osage stave. The next time he came by, he said, "I want to learn how to make this bow." And I thought, okay, so much the better. Then I don't have to do all the work. I'll just stand over your shoulder and watch you do it and guide you. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I handed him Bow Your Bible #1. And I said, go home and read this. And so he read it, and he would call me, "Oh my gosh, did you know about this?" And I go, "Well, yeah." And when he finished that book, I said, "Okay, here's Bow Your Bible #2. Go home and read that one." And so when his stave came, we built the bow. We produced a 50-pound Osage bow. I think it was like 66 inches long. It's a long bow. And then I had another guy come to me, do the same thing. "Would you teach me how to make a bow?" And I said, "Yeah, you buy the stave, I'll show you how to do it." And that's kind of how I got into doing it. Like I said, I haven't taught a whole lot of people because I don't run classes. It's always been an after hours, come on Saturday and we'll work on the bow for a while. And then come the next Saturday. So for me, it's always been over time. I've been working with Jeff Martin and helping him for about 3 years now. And so we just come and kind of collaborate on bows. I don't like laying sinew. I don't like gluing sinew. So on these bows, I shape them and Jeff glues the sinew on, and then I tiller them. So we kind of got a partnership.
Yeah, it's a nice collaboration.
Yeah, yeah.
I really
So I mean,
enjoy Jeff's content on YouTube. He really has great content, you know, all the
yeah,
videos and everything,
yeah.
very
He knows his,
educational.
he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and his archaeology, he's taken me out to some of the archaeological. I mean, around Prescott here, we've got a whole lot of archaeological sites, but you'd never know they were there because they're barely seen, and it takes a trained eye to actually see them. And I mean, I've walked by places hundreds of times, and I take Jeff out, and he says, "Oh my gosh, there's a ruin here." And I go, "What are you talking about?" Because I'm not trained. I mean, archaeology was something that I was interested in long time ago. And I follow Israeli archaeology. I follow archaeology up in Norway and Sweden, up in those areas. I love archaeology. I'm just not a trained archaeologist. I never studied it as a, a college type thing or anything like that.
Yeah. And I think it's very nice that the fact that I think that you are a kind of a mentor in the bow making scene for him. And in Israel, because it's not very, what is the word? All the primitive archery scene is not very common.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was really hard to find a person that I can learn from him. I have several friends that they were my first inspirations. Yeah. But after I made my first bow, it's just like what you were saying. I bought all the four volumes of the traditional Boris Bible, and I just read them back and forth, up and down, to the side. And this is, I think that 95% of what I know is from those volumes, these volumes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
By
it's
the
a work of art what they did there.
By the time the Bowyer Bibles came out, which I think the first one came out in the early 90s, I had figured out how to make bows. I mean, it added to my knowledge. I mean, I hadn't really played with the Hoopa stuff that much. Mostly it was Ishii. And like I said, it was all self bows. And actually my ash bow, the one that I shot in the video that I started out with, I made that bow not knowing what the parameters of an Ishii bow was. I just made the bow. And later on, when the fourth volume came out and it had all the measurements of the Ishii bows, and it had that one ash bow that he made, my bow that I had made in the 80s was exactly the same size and exactly the same weight. I know, it's crazy.
Crazy,
it's like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like it was destined or something. It's kind of funny, but no, I mean, what you do, I enjoy watching your postings on Facebook and the videos. That forested area, I'm going, where the heck was that at? Because I don't remember a forested area like that in Israel other than Mount Carmel area.
Yeah, most of my meetings are in the Mount Carmel.
Okay.
And I have one meeting that is further north in the northern district of Israel, where I have the arrangement that I can cut down the wood.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I see the forest and I go, man, I don't remember anything like that.
Yeah, you need to come. You need to come
I
again.
Know,
and then I will take you there.
Obviously, it's changed. It's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, and I will take you to.
What you're doing is awesome. Is awesome. I mean, like I said, I never sought fame. I mean, I would never call myself an expert on anything really. I'm an explorer of things, and I guess now because I've been doing it so long, now I'm looked upon as a mentor or an expert or something. Although I would never. I still break bows.
Yeah.
you never get over breaking bows. Just some pieces of wood just don't want to be a bow. So
yeah.
there is wood.
Yeah, I think that this is why I appreciate you so much. Even though we are not we haven't met physically, the fact that I can see I first met you through Jeff's videos, and afterwards we were talking on Facebook, texting and messaging. It gave me a lot, and I told in the beginning to the other guests that for me you are a kind of an inspiration in this subject, and you don't need to be an expert. I really love what you said, because I also agree with this statement that if a person says that he is an expert, then he finished learning. He knows everything, and the fact is that there is always something to be learned. And it's very, for me, it's very important as a teacher of the art, of the skill, to stay in this state of mind.
Yeah.
Because if I'm losing it, I'm getting further and further from the first experience of my students, I think.
Yeah. You said you had a couple of more questions.
Yeah. I think that it sums up, because it's already a very long conversation, and
that's okay.
It's really it's a spontaneous.
You might have to make it a two-parter.
Because I was thinking that I'm going to pass a lecture in Hebrew about the paddle bows, and after a minute we're in a different conversation.
Yeah,
it's very spontaneous of the two of us, and and it's very nice.
Sometime we ought to get together and have a conversation on the asymmetrical bow.
Yeah, wow.
That's a cool parameter. It really is cool. And it's amazing. You can have two bows exactly the same. One asymmetrical, one symmetrical. And as near as you can possibly get them. And the asymmetrical bow shoots different. It has a different feel to it. I think if you have two 50-pound bows, one symmetrical and one asymmetrical, the asymmetrical bow will actually throw the arrow faster, and it throws it higher. So if you were to shoot with the symmetrical bow and you hit the target, say you put it in the center of the target, with the asymmetrical bow, you'll probably shoot 2 to 3 inches higher than with the symmetrical bow. It's a really different parameter, and you find them, the American Indians, there was one tribe, the Hidatsa, had an asymmetrical bow. And then obviously you have the Japanese Yumi, which is the extreme.
Yeah.
And the Bulgarians and the Hungarians had an asymmetrical format. That's really interesting. That in itself, that's probably my favorite bow, is the asymmetrical design.
I still need to experience it, because I haven't experienced it. Never made a asymmetrical bow. But I would really like to enjoy. I would really enjoy to listen to it in maybe a different session. It will be very interesting.
We'll have to plan that one. We'll have to plan.
Yeah. So maybe in order to close the record, I will say that it's really a privilege, to have the option to talk to you, not to text. It's really a privilege, and you gave me a lot of inspiration. And I think that the people that will watch or listen to this conversation will also get maybe new ideas, or maybe more inspiration. So I would like to.
it sure went different than what I thought. I was just going to listen. I just
you were about to listen to a Hebrew lecture.
Yeah.
about
I mean, if all I do is have people showing me bows on there and they're talking in Hebrew, I don't care. I just get to see the bow.
yeah, and maybe, but next week on Monday, if it will be possible, you can join the lecture that Amiel is going to give. Amiel is going to talk next Monday at the same time at 8 in Israel local time. It's 8 p.m. Amiel is going to give a lecture about the evolution of the bow and arrow in our region, in the Near East and in Egypt, from the Epipaleolithic era to the Iron Age. So it's also an interesting subject, and I asked from Amiel to do it.
Yeah, you guys have the deflex tip bow.
Yeah. So he's going to talk about this design. Yeah.
And you also have that triangular bow.
Yeah, this is the composite bow.
Yeah. That's why I say archery is a never-ending subject. The bow is a never-ending subject. So.
Totally. Yes.
All right.
So I will tell you thank you very much, and I will close the recording.